The War is Over, the Stonehouse Series, Chapter 34. In Benjamin's mind, each piece of information was systematically being sorted, labeled, and categorically placed in correct arrangement for rapid retrieval and maximum safeguard value. He considered who would be allowed to receive each piece of information, and if something should be presented at all. Little did he know that he would be the one sitting down and listening. "She's what?" questioned Ben, looking at Simon and listening to Mary. "To you, Simon, you're what? When did this happen?" "What, sweaty black horse?" "She thought what? Oh my. About Simon. Oh, cover my ears." Emma was sitting in a comfy chair on Simon's veranda, peacefully listening to the excitement of life and the joy surrounding his friends. Ben pleaded, "Please, Mary, please, start at the beginning, slow down, and tell your story in some sort of order, and I will try not to interrupt you." After 45 minutes of information from 6 different voices, Ben and Emil learned that Simon and Martha were to be married. Simon had lived in the caves under Stonehouse until he was 4 with his great-great-aunt Anna. And Anna had been watching for the Messiah and spoke words over Jesus when he was brought to the temple as an infant. Esther could do an excellent pantomime of both a Jewish wedding and a pregnant woman, and the dinner would be the following evening. Simon and Martha were hoping Emil would agree to prepare roast lamb, and Simon had hidden the leprosy for over 15 years. Esther's Ethiopian mama, Hannah, was expecting a baby with her husband Joseph, and Simon was very good at breaking horses, and Martha considered Simon to be hot. After a brief intermission, to let the information settle, Emil and Benjamin explained the danger presented by the plans of Caiaphas. It was concluded that Lazarus, Martha, and Mary would live in the caves beneath Stonehouse, starting immediately after the dinner, and stay there until the threat of death had passed. The primary details which needed to be overcome were the gardens and the greenhouse at the house of Lazarus, plus Martha's chickens. Benjamin offered his services as gardener and chicken tender, and Mary found the solution acceptable. Final arrangements were to be concluded by Mary instructing Ben as to the proper care and feeding of each and every type of plant in the gardens. From the veranda, all 8 made their way down layered stone steps set on top of the immovable foundation of Stonehouse. Simon led the way, explaining the structure of the house and characteristics of the rock which it was built on. The entire house sits on stone. When great-great-grandfather found this spot on his father's land, what caught his attention was the whoosh sound of air flowing up through a small hole. It was night, and he had pitched his tent on top of this flat-top stone cliff. The cliff was then as it is now, and it drops off 50 feet straight down, and he was camped about 100 feet from the edge. In the cold silence of the night, he heard that whoosh sound of moving air and went to find its source. He found warm air escaping through a small hole at the edge of a large flat stone. In the morning, he dug around the stone and pried it to the side, sliding it off the top of a vertical hole. He took a burning stick from his morning campfire and dropped it down the hole, and it fell 30 feet and lay on the floor of a cavernous room. There was about 15 feet of a sort of chimney hole before you got to the cavern, and he worked the day to make a rope, and by evening he lowered himself down the hole after throwing a bunch of supplies in first. Martha asked, "How old was he when he found this place?" "Oh, 14 or 15. He was just a kid. I think Anna was a year or two younger. He was right here, where we are standing, with the sheep he watched over with his dog." Opening the door to his wine cellar, they noticed a fresh air smell. This room sits below the kitchen. There are also a dumbwaiter which drops down to the caves from the kitchen through a chute near the fireplace. Another vertical shaft sits alongside of the fireplace chimney, and the airflow coming up from the cavern leaves the house through a second chimney. They are side by side. The constant air wash keeps the caves full of clean air. Lazarus was impressed. There must be other ways into the cave for there to be moving air. "This room is fresh and fairly dry, not musty at all. I'm surprised. Caves are usually stale, damp, and musty, not a place you would want to live." "Well, there are several ways in and out, and there are 3 points of access from the house." "How many of those do you know, Hannah?" "Only this one, Simon. I did not know there were others. I have never been down there in the dark. It has always reminded me too much of the belly of the ship they took me away in." "Not to fear, Hannah," comforted Simon. "This is an entire world away from what you encountered on that ship." Simon made his way to a closet at the back of his wine cellar and opened the door. There were brooms and tools hanging on the back wall of the closet. He reached in, released a latch, and pulled a hook on the far right side next to the back wall, which was really a second door. It swung forward and to the left. At his feet was a black hole, and straight in front of him was a large rope that was hooked over to the side. Beyond the rope was an iron ladder, and the top of the rope wrapped around what looked like a bucket winch that you would find at a deep water well. "This is the primary entrance. It's just big enough for a pregnant woman to get up and down. There are 2 exits, which are fairly accessible near the base of the cliff, but they are very well hidden from the outside world, and each has a locked gate. This entrance can be quickly locked from the inside with crossbars, and there are also 3 exits which I could get through when I was a little boy, but I never actually went outside through those holes before I was permitted to leave when I was 4. I just peered through, looking at what was out there." Martha took Simon's hand. It must have been hard as a little boy peeking out at a world that wanted to hurt you. "Well, Anna was my constant companion," replied Simon. "With her, what I had was a life far richer than a prince in a palace. Wait until you see. It's as if the joy she brought to the cave is still there." Esther excitedly expounded. "Yeah, Martha, just wait and see. It's awesome." "And you, Esther, what do you know of this place and 3 entrances, the cavern, caves, and stuff?" She began by hedging. Simon cut her off. Don't you start with me. I only wanted to know what you know of this place. Yes, Simon, sir. I know of this door and the other two, the upper room and the big room, the bedrooms and the cave, and all of the lower exits. You went through 39 candles that I know of. It's a good thing you did your chores so well. And your mama is such a good cook. Fortunately for you, that is. Yes, sir, replied Esther. 53 candles. That's what I took before I started making candles myself. I will find a way to pay you back for what I took. Did I ever tell you that you were not allowed down there? Esther perked up. No, sir. Simon declared her sentence. You will repay the cost of my candles by being a service to Martha, Lazarus, and Mary, as they are to be my guests in my home, away from home. Really? That's like you paying me to take the candles, Simon continued. Do you still have a candle stash and a timber box in the first room below? Yes, Simon. Then you go and get some light on down there, and the rest of us will follow. Me too, sir? Questioned Hannah. Yes, I think it would be good for you, and I need to know that I can send you down there on your own if you are needed there. Esther grabbed hold of the forged metal ladder rungs on the far side of the hole. She stepped over the blackness and into the rungs. In a moment she was down the hole and out of sight. Seconds went by, and shuffling noises mixed with the clicking sound of a flint floated up to their ears. Off to one side of the black hole were flickers of light and then a steady stream of yellow light. Another moment passed, and more lights burst from the first flame. Simon asked, "Who's next?" "I'm game," said Mary as she walked into the closet and cautiously stepped across the hole and climbed down the ladder. As her feet hit the floor, she let out a, "Wow, this is cool! Martha, you've got to see this!" "Home sweet home," said Martha as she took her turn, with Hannah following close behind. "Esther," called Simon down to the women, "do you know how to lock the door?" "No, sir, I've never done that." "Pull the red chain and then loop it through the ladder and hook the chain hook on a ladder rung." There was a metal-on-metal clanking, a sliding sound followed by a thunk. 3 steel bars slid across the hole and into receiver sockets on the other side of the hole. Not even a chicken could get through there now. "It's very interesting, Simon," came Martha's voice up from her cage. "So how do we get out now?" "Martha, it's not you who is locked in. It's everyone else who is locked out. You have the controls there with you. You are supposed to feel safe now." "Well, I would feel safer if you were down here with me, showing me how this works." "Okay, Martha, unhook the red chain and pull the green chain." Again, there was a metal clanking, sliding sound with the following thunk, and the hole was open again. All 4 men went down, with Simon last in line, pulling the closet door and the false door closed behind him. Light was being broadcast from several scones around the room, and Esther was passing out more candles, each with a burning light. The room was full of brightness, and the walls and the ceiling contained a substance like mica, or else it was mica, a reflective rock of a golden color. Hannah was awestruck. This is beyond what I ever could have imagined. To think something might exist in one thing, but to stand in its presence. Simon, this is beautiful. They were standing in a small cavern about 20 feet wide by 40 feet long, with a rounded ceiling which was maybe 15 feet high at its highest. The floor was fairly flat, but they were in a dish-shaped hollow directly below the ladder entrance. To their side was a low wall, about hip-high, and on the other side of the wall was a large hole that they could not see the bottom of. From there, they were standing. At the far end of the cavern was a circular stairway made of timbers that went somewhere down. Around the room were a couple of sitting chairs, a tall cupboard, a daybed, plus a branch tunnel displaying a desk, and many pigeon-hole-type deep storage cabinets. "This is my idea of a getaway place," said Mary, listening to her own voice. "I thought there would be more of an echo." Laz was also gawking and thinking, 2 weeks down here. Ben doing my chores. Not bad. Not bad at all. Benjamin noticed the contented, happy look in the eyes of Lazarus. "Just don't get too comfortable or I might get hungry for some of your chickens." Martha informed him, "Benjamin, those are my chickens. There's plenty of food to fix in the house." Simon asked, "Ready to see the lower level, where the bedrooms are?" "Bedrooms? Like more than one? Are you kidding?" "3, answered Esther. "They are caves with beds and doors and even an inside." "Esther," Simon stopped her again, "let them wonder for a moment." "Yeah," questioned Lazarus. "What do, when you, it's an easier question when there's not a room full of women." Simon added to Esther, "Lead the way, Esther." Martha and Simon let the rest go first, while they tagged along behind. How did this all come to be? My father had his most faithful men work on this while my mother carried me. It was at Anna's insistence. There was quite a bit which had been done to the caves over the years, but the home touch was added in the months just before I arrived. Father knew Mom would want to spend several hours a day down here. He did it for her as much for Anna and me. As they walked down the spiral stairs, they could hear Lazarus sputtering and Esther laughing. Simon said, "They have found the inside outhouse." From the center of the soul flowed a joyfully peaceful day of looking at flowers, checking out how the broccoli is growing, and even in the midst of an approaching storm, to look around and say, "All is well."